Teamwork is everywhere. And yet, we continue to train people in education and in the workforce for primarily individual and technical skills. And I think that needs to change. And that's why I'm going to present to you these 3 simple virtues. All right. Okay, that's the end of my memorized part of my speech, which freaked me out because I don't memorize anything. Now let's just talk. All right, so we're going to go to the first slide. In my book, The Ideal Team Player, I explore these 3 simple virtues, but the power of those virtues is in the commonality of them all. We have to have all 3. If you play baseball and you're 1 for 3 hitter, that's pretty good. It's terrible in teamwork. If you're 2 for 3 as a quarterback in passing, that's pretty good. You gotta be 3 for 3 when it comes to teamwork. So let's talk about these 3 virtues. Let me introduce you to them and then talk about how we can identify and improve ourselves if we're lacking any. So the first virtue of an ideal team player is by far the most important, and it is humility. If you want to be an ideal team player, and if you want to be successful in life, you really need to be humble, more than ever. Now, this is the most important because as a follower of Jesus, the Bible says that the root of all sin is pride. And I believe that. You look at all the problems we have, it's usually rooted in pride. Well, the antidote to pride is humility, so it stands to reason that this would be the most important. And most of us know what humility is, right? It's not being ego-centered or arrogant or self-centered, but being about others, putting others ahead of ourselves. It's such an attractive and powerful thing. But there's another side of humility we have to understand too. It's in the minority, but it's still important to understand. See, some people will look at another person and say, she never talks about herself, she never demands that we listen to her, she never thinks she has the right answer, she's really humble. And when somebody lacks confidence, it's actually not humility. You see, when we have an idea or a talent, to deny our God-given talents is actually a violation of humility, just like it is to exaggerate them. C.S. Lewis said it best. He said, humility isn't thinking less of ourselves, it's thinking about ourselves less. But the most prominent kind of lack of humility we see in teams, in the workforce, and in life is arrogance and ego-centeredness. So this is the first and most important attribute. The second one is equally simple, and it is you have to be hungry. You have to be hungry. People who have an innate hunger about getting work done are much more successful on teams and in life. And this is simply just having a strong work ethic. And this is probably the easiest one to understand, but I'll say this to the young people out there. This is the one that you probably have to develop earliest in life. When I work with people later in life who never developed an innate sense of hunger, it's harder. And so I talk to kids in middle school and I say, do it now. Work hard at everything you do. This is not about workaholism, though. Workaholics are people who get their entire identity from their work, and that's not what I'm saying here. People who are hungry just want to go above and beyond, have a high standard for what they do, and never do the minimum. They never do just the minimum. Now, the third attribute of an ideal team player is what I call being smart. But it's not about intellectual smarts. This is about emotional intelligence, common sense around how we understand people and how we use our words and actions to bring out the best possible impact in others. This is so important in the world. And you can develop this in life. Being smart is one of those things that people can work on and get better at. So humble, hungry, smart. These are the 3 simple virtues. But the key is that we have to have all 3 to be an ideal team player. So it's really important that we learn how to identify in ourselves and others when one is lacking. So what I'm going to do now is come up with some labels, which I want you to use carefully, for people that lack one of these in a very serious, egregious way. So let's take a look at those now. A person who is humble, the most important one, they think about others ahead of themselves, and they're hungry, they work really hard, but they lack smarts. They're not emotionally intelligent. We call this the accidental mess maker. Now, I have a lot of time for accidental mess makers. They're good people, they have really good intentions, but they kind of create problems that they're not aware of. They're like that dog, that puppy. I have a puppy at home, and they knock things over a lot, but they mean well, and they poop on the carpet, and you have to clean up after them. But because they mean well, you can whack them on the nose with a newspaper, and they come back for more. They have a great attitude. The problem with accidental mess makers is just you do have to clean up with them. They create a little bit extra work, and over time you kind of get tired of having to say, he's a really good guy, he didn't mean it that way. Nonetheless, of the three types that lack one of these virtues, I will take the accidental mess maker. The second one is also a very good kind. That's somebody who's humble, the most important one, and they're smart. They're good at dealing with people, but they lack hunger. We call this kind the lovable slacker. Now, lovable slackers, the problem is they're lovable. So they're really fun to be around, and they're good people, they're nice people, but they just do the bare minimum. They don't go above and beyond, and you have to constantly remind them to do more, and you have to kind of pick up their slack in an organization. Now, I once worked with a lovable slacker. A good friend of mine still is, and every time I reminded him that he needed to do more, he would say, "You're right." And he was so passionate in life about everything besides work, right? But because he was lovable, he was so fun to be with. And I said to him one day, I said, "You know, you're going to have to leave this company when you're good and ready." And 5 years later, he was out that door. The truth is, it's very easy to tolerate lovable slackers, but they do have a problem. They cause problems on a team. Now, the third type is the most difficult type. This is the person who is hungry. They really want to work hard. They're ambitious. And they're smart. So they're really good at dealing with people. But they're not humble. And we call this the skillful politician. I'm sure your mayor here is not the skillful in this sense. No, she's probably a skillful leader, but not the skillful politician in this sense. Skillful politicians are so smart that they know how to portray themselves as being humble, which is a very dangerous thing. Because what they do is they interview well, they go to meetings and they say the right things, they know how to kiss up to the boss or the coach or the teacher. The problem is, deep down inside, it's about them, not about others. And by the time we figure it out, there's usually a trail of dead bodies hidden in closets around the organization. I once worked with this guy on the team that was a skillful politician, and he was so clever at hiding it. He was so clever that he was even Canadian. You see, you would never suspect a Canadian. They're always so nice. You would never think they would be that way. And we would go to meetings, and this guy would be so good with people, and we thought, he is the ultimate team player. He's wonderful. And then after a while, we realized, man, his salary has tripled. Half of his colleagues are gone. He's been gaming this. The truth of the matter is, when a person lacks humility, but they're good at presenting themselves, that can be a very dangerous thing on a team. Okay, so what do you do with this? First of all, I don't want you to misuse these labels. Don't go back to work and say to your boss, "Hey, I think that you're an accidental mess maker." Or tell your mom she's a lovable slacker. You know, that's going to get you into trouble, and it should. Apply this first to yourself. But then I want you to do this. Here's a very simple activity. Go sit down with your team at work, or with your family, or with the Little League team you coach, and have everybody understand humble, hungry, and smart, and then ask them to rank themselves in these three areas. Which one they're best at, second best, and third. Even if they're good at all of them, they're going to have a third. Even if they're not so good at all of them, one of them's going to be third. And have them just identify which one is their third. And then go around the table and ask people to explain their third and why that's theirs. And then talk as a team about how people can brainstorm about how people can overcome this. Give each other advice. That humble person, you might say, you know, maybe you shouldn't talk about yourself so much, but you should ask questions of others and take an interest in others' lives. That hungry person, it's like, maybe when you're about to leave work at 4:50, you should check in and see if there's more work that needs to be done. Or that smart person at the end of meetings, maybe you should ask people if you've upset anyone and learn about how you can avoid that. Whatever the case is, what I want you to do is turn your colleagues, your team members, your family members into your coaches. They are the best source of coaching and advice you have to become a better team player and more successful in life. Because the day you know that the people around you love you enough to tell you when you're doing something that you need to improve in, everything changes. So I want you to go home and I want you to do this. And in a very short period of time, you're going to see a difference. Now let me leave you with this. At my company, the Table Group, we don't care when we hire people where they went to college. We really don't. And we don't care about their GPA or their ACT or their SAT. The only three-letter acronym we care about really is H, H, and S. And I think that's something that we need to do more of in our society, whether it's professional development in our organizations or whether it's in our schools. You know, I think, as a father of 4 boys, I think it's time we took a little bit of the pressure off kids from just memorizing the periodic table of the elements or iambic pentameter, whatever that is, I don't even remember, or the quadratic equation. I mean, we have to learn those things, I get this, and kids should work hard. But I think we should actually give them things that they can control in their lives that are really going to pay off in their future. And we should teach them how to be other-centered, not self-centered. We should teach them how to work hard at everything they do, school and everything else, just because it's the right thing to do. And third, we should teach them how to be more adept interpersonally and emotionally with the people around them. See, I think that could make a huge difference in our corporations and in our schools and our families. And I really believe that the world would be a better place, and that our companies would be better places, our families would be better, and the individuals in society would be better if more of us were humble, hungry, and smart. Thank you, and God bless.